everybody. Today I'm pleased to be here to interview Mr. John Kisagun, who is the CEO of Eximchain. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Margaret. Thanks for having me here.
Right, let's make it a really casual conversation. So, start from the basic information about yourself. And I see you're currently the second year student of MIT MBA program.
Yes.
How you end up there?
Sure. I actually did graduate 2 months ago.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Margaret. So a quick background about myself. I'm Turkish. I was born and raised in Istanbul. Have you been there?
Oh yeah, that's super pretty city.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite city actually.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite places on earth, and I just miss not being able to go back this summer. But yeah, I was born and raised there. I first moved to the U.S. when I was for undergrad. I spent 4 years in Chicago. I did engineering at Northwestern University. Then I joined McKinsey and did 3 years of consulting, where I primarily did banking engagements and risk for smaller companies. That was back in Turkey again, and then I wanted to change what I was doing in life. So I went to MIT for 2 years, and it was during that point where I got into where I came up with the idea that I'm currently working on, and decided not to go back to the consulting route afterwards.
So I'm kind of interested to know what's the difference between the consultant's life and the entrepreneur's life.
I think
I know sleep probably one thing that's in common that you never have enough sleep, but for other things like lifestyle or pressure or all this kind of stuff.
I think it's quite a different life setting. First of all, I mean, yeah, you do put in a lot of hours, but you're working for something that you are 100% passionate about, and every drop of effort you put in is going to return, hopefully, to you. I mean, you may end up not making anything, and you probably know the odds are against the entrepreneur. But I think it's a more thrilling ride. It's much more fun. Obviously, you have to downgrade your lifestyle. You no longer get to fly business class. You end up doing 6 hour layovers because it's cheaper. But yeah, I think it's quite a different experience. I'm very happy about what I'm doing right now, and I hope I get to be able to continue to do what I'm doing.
Cool. So how you started suddenly change from a consultant and become an entrepreneur? That's kind of from my understanding, it's a kind of a big step. Who is the one that inspires you to make this step out?
Honestly, the first inspiration came towards me when I was writing my MBA applications. The MBA applications was basically required for me to continue my consulting path. I would do a 2 year MBA program, come back to my company, work for 2 years, and they would pay for my MBA expenses. But then I realized I wanted to do something else. That's what I focused my essays on, and then when I got out, I tried doing different things. I worked on a couple of projects. One was in medical devices, one was in agriculture, and then finally found home with Eximchain.
Well, so you were working on different things, but why in the end you decided to do international trade instead of agriculture or health?
There are many reasons, but to cut things short, I really liked the team that I was working with on this project.
So it's the people.
The people are very important because you spend your days and nights with these people, and things get ugly. So you have to be able to bounce back from that. So team is very, very important, and I figured out that this was a team that I want to move forward with.
Who started the concept of let's do international trade? Is there anybody that has a background about this that started?
Sure. Well, my family is in import-export business,
Oh, okay.
but that's a bit of a coincidence in terms of how I landed on this. The long story short, when I got into MIT, I started getting really, really interested into Bitcoin. I did a lot of research, and at the time, most of the applications were in remittances, sending money to Philippines, and the story was Western Union is an evil organization. They take 8% remittances fees on everything. So I started thinking about whether can I use this technology that really fascinates me in a B2B fashion. And leveraging my banking and consulting experiences, I decided to focus on international trade and letters of credit, which from a hypothetical point of view make a great use case for smart contracts and asset transfer over the blockchain. And and then I started talking to my family. I realized this was a pain point, and that's how it all got started. We kind of changed directions since then, but that's our story.
Okay. So, is there any number that how much percent that new technology or your solution can help compared to the old one?
So that's very hard to quantify,
Okay.
but there are a couple of issues that we see in the existing system. The big idea is trader reputation. And to put things in perspective, let's say you and I do trade.
Okay.
We've been doing trade for the past 10 years, and then I want to go and sell to someone else.
Okay.
There's no way I can independently prove that I had done this. I've this trade experience with you, and I was able to deliver on time every time we agreed. If I'm talking that person has to rely on your reference, which, as you probably expect, is not a very strong, let's say, collateral.
Okay.
So what we want to achieve is we want to be able to enable people in international trade build reputation as buyers and sellers and be able to scale their existing relationship with their
Okay.
existing customers to new customers, if necessary, financial institutions and whatnot.
So basically, I mean like the current probably third-party ledger or banks are not able to provide this kind of improvement to new customers, right?
So you can argue whoever holds the data has
Uh-huh.
the power. There's been a lot of let's say there's a school of thinking that claims that's the way people make money. If you look at big organizations, the way they make money is they have proprietary information.
Right.
They find frictions and they leverage those frictions.
Right.
Banks, that's how they make money.
Yeah.
However, so that's why they have no incentive to change what they're doing. Yet this leaves a problem with some people in the existing system that are underserved. We target primarily small to medium-sized enterprises because they are left really underserved by the current banking system. To put things in perspective, we focus on trades between US and China. And if you're a small company under 50 million in revenue in China, it's very hard for you to get a loan. And also there are some issues around reputation that basically forces American companies to push for longer payment terms. So what an American company would do is based on what we hear from interviews is I will pay you 30% upfront, and then I will pay the remaining amount of money after the goods arrive, so I can validate that what you shipped is actually what we agreed upon. So basically, that forces the manufacturer to finance that manufacturing period and the shipment period.
Okay.
And given how expensive and inaccessible credit is to small scale exporters in China, and because of an inefficiency in the existing banking system, and that is no bank in China would actually take the risk of the US buyer. Um, because of this, because of these innate inefficiencies, we're seeing a group that's heavily underserved, and we want to help them build their trade reputation so we can reduce the risk that's related to their trades, and that would help us create access to lower source funding for them.
Okay. And as you mentioned before, you're also like using a little bit about blockchain. So how that's being involved into the whole process? So what kind of functionality you're using about blockchain?
We want to have independently verifiable reputation. That's why we store these trade events, which I'm going to talk a bit more about in a second, in the Bitcoin blockchain. What that enables is that enables me to go and prove whoever I want that I have been involved in these transactions and these transactions have been successful. For what we do is we enable the buyer and the seller agree on a contract, and let's say, keeping things simple, this contract says I'm gonna ship you goods from Nanjing to Long Beach. The ship has to depart by this date, and a couple of other functions. What we do is we store that contract, and then we track events that verify or disprove whether those conditions have been met or not. So we look into when the ship leaves the port. We can track where it left from, when it left, where it's arriving, and then so we can track all these events to make sure whether a seller is a reliable seller and can ship goods on time. And then similarly, we can verify whether the buyer is reliable and is able to pay. If we can store all this information in the Bitcoin blockchain, and the Bitcoin blockchain makes sense because it's immutable and it's timestamped, we can verify our reputation. If I want to sell to someone else and they are very, let's say, sensitive about whether I'll be able to deliver in time or not, I can show them my last 10 transactions and show them that I was able to deliver the goods before my actual shipment date or within those times.
So, if there is a legal dispute between the buyer and the seller, well, like buyer and seller, can we regard that data as kind of legal evidence that they can show to prove, or is there any case that's really like certifying that this is actually like a viable case?
To be honest, I haven't heard whether the data stored in the Bitcoin blockchain has been used for any arbitration purposes. What we intend to do is we intend to have our customers sign terms and conditions, which would basically say this is information provided by me. So I'm not a lawyer, so I don't have the best answer for that. But there are companies who use the Bitcoin blockchain for the purpose of storing data and tracking goods.
Basically, your company like target at like small to medium sized companies, um, so you will be facing a lot of risk.
True, most small companies are less banked and more risky, but what that enables us is that's a group that's been left out by the current system, so they really have the need for what we're offering, and we're working on smart ways to uh, marry the data of their money transactions, the good transactions, to come up with smart algorithms to assess their risk better than the existing established players, let's say.
If you're having like kind of low, let's say like kind of low barrier and do like small business, and probably you charge them like probably lower fees in order to compete with bigger banks, and how you turn like all this like a low volume thing into profits.
What we really count on is being able to build this reputation. If we're able to build this reputation, we're able to quantify the risk of these people much better than anyone else on the street, and that's I think what gives us the advantage. It also gives the advantage to our customers because now they have a way to use that reputation and take it elsewhere if they want to. Because as I mentioned, it's an independently verifiable credit score or trader history. So if they want to go to a bank and take that data with them, they can. But but it's a well-known fact that banks don't want to serve these customers, and I mean it's just they're not as profitable as the big ones.
So a little bit about your roadmap of your company. Is there any short term or long term?
We're doing let's say a small prototype feedback with a couple of customers. With we have some customers that are very excited about what we're building. We're going to the plug and play accelerator right now. For anyone who's in the Bay Area, we have our demo day, I think, on October 27th. If you come here, you will get to see more on what we're working on.
Okay, cool. And I think, well, these are actually not like something new. Like bigger companies like Visa, they have their own blockchain system. Do you see any like opportunity to do business with them?
Um, I think so. Going back to your point, the way people use blockchain with its permission-based, permissionless, what I see encouraging is, to an extent, the fact that these companies are moving in this space um, really makes really helps people eliminate the education phase on what blockchains are. I mean, obviously, different blockchains have different purposes, but what they achieve on a broader sense. However, I also think that this leads to a hype. Now everyone is doing a blockchain, so people can agree, disagree. I think it's overall it's a good thing that people are trying to adopt this technology and experiment what can be done. And having these companies with all these resources is a good thing because that means that they can hire good talent and come up with good ideas.
Um, so actually, there is a like kind of like common in the industry that blockchain is not a solution looking for a problem. So do you agree with this one? Like because to some extent, I do think people are too excited about it that they are trying everything.
I think there are things that that blockchain enables us to do, and they're very interesting things. There are a couple of companies that that I like a lot. One is by um, a friend of mine from MIT. His name is Guy Ziskin, and their company is Enigma. They are just getting started, but they're doing amazing work in data computation. His solution is it's a blockchain based solution. That's that's not what makes his company, but that's a big part of it. I think there are some other cool company. They basically allow you to send money using your phone anywhere you want on the world. It's a simple use case. It doesn't get into um, too intense technology, but it's a good use case. So there are, I think, some ways you can like solve really important problems, and there are some more experimental projects. I don't mean to in any way say that those are not worthy projects, but basically some projects are very very experimental, and I think they're pushing the bounds of imagination, and we need those. And some projects are more problem focused. We need those as well. I think it's a healthy mix to have everything.
What is the time that you think blockchain will be definitely be used in the industry, kind of start to be used? Right now, it's like kind of like a concept to be proved.
There's so many applications. Depends on like what blockchain we're talking about and what applications.
So let's just use the international trade as.
In order for international blockchain to make change the international trade from head to toe, we need every single party, from the buyer to seller to finance providers to customs to shipping companies to intermediate transfer companies. All these players should have an incentive, should be on the same ecosystem, and if they are on the same ecosystem, you can argue about being able to reduce the paperwork, having much faster transactions, and removing most of the barriers. However, the problem I see with that is, I mean, hopefully we get there, but it's hard to get there. And how do you provide people incentive to get there? I think is a question mark. The reason why we're doing what we're doing is because we believe the buyer and the seller are the ones that drive other market forces. So if there is a change that's going to happen, that's going to be dictated by the buyers and the sellers who use systems like transportation companies, finance companies, whatever. That's why we're going the way we're going. But I honestly think in the next 5 years, I don't think it's possible to do that. If we talk about Bitcoin as a currency, I don't think Bitcoin will become the reserve currency, and people will stop using any kind of other currency. Yeah, Bitcoin becomes very interesting if you want to send money cross border, but I can send money using Venmo, and it's as easy as it. So um, so I mean, I think it's a debate. I'm not saying what I'm saying is right, but that's how I see it. I think with Bitcoin and Ethereum protocols, the number of transactions that the network can handle per second is very very low. So when you have Visa on the thousands of transactions, and when you have both these blockchain protocols less than 10 transactions a second, then I mean, so there are some questions, like, but there's a lot of debate on adjusting the block size, changing on the Bitcoin blockchain, changing the consensus method in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm not as close to that discussion, but so we'll see. I mean, there are needs, and different protocols have different needs. So,
Mhm.
so it could come soon. I think DAOs are an interesting concept. Security is an issue around smart contracts.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not an expert there, but what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, um, I don't think people are so into decentralization that they can take so much risk. Obviously, don't get me wrong, there are extreme benefits from removing intermediaries and reducing the traction, let's say, reducing friction. But unless, let's say, these smart contracts and DAOs are proven to be 100% reliable, I don't expect any big uptake in those areas as well. Yeah, but I don't think blockchains are going anywhere. I think it's an amazing technology. I think there's a lot to be done. It's just a
Right.
matter of time.
So, do you want to talk about your company and probably your team members?
We're formed at MIT. We had an initial founder team, and then we moved from that to another founder team. But right now, Hope Liu is my co-founder. She is a Chinese student who is going to MIT Sloan. We met her at MIT Media Lab at a class, and I was pitching the idea. She really liked it. Having spent all her life in China, she saw a lot of potential in what we were doing,
Mhm.
and came on board. In time, she proved herself to be an invaluable member, and then now we're working together. And then we have Royal, who is a CS PhD student at Brown University right now. He's been helping with the design of our architecture and guiding our developers, Nurik and Roberto, who are working on this right now. And this is the team for now. We're trying to grow our team. So hopefully we'll find good, passionate people to join our team in the near future.
Cool. Is there any interesting companies that you see?
There's a company called Fluent Funds. Those are good friends of ours. I think they're doing a great job. Uh, Last time we spoke, they were more focused on domestic trade financing or supply chain financing. That's one cool company that just comes up to mind. I've mentioned a couple others earlier. I think Netkey is a cool company. Um, they're basically changing hard to use Bitcoin address names with easier names. So that's like I think bringing Bitcoin a step closer to user transactions. And there's so many more out there. And yeah, if interested, please check out our website eximchain.com and subscribe for our services.
And then let's thank John like for joining us today. Thank you so much.